Okay, once you guys are fully done your unwraps, and you have all your objects, so I have my monitors here. I have like a bazillion objects. They're not attached. I can't attach them all if I want to right now, but I'm probably going to have to split some stuff up for actual baking when we do that next week. But when you guys are done and you have all your different elements, or it's all one, whatever the hell it happens to be, um, select all of your meshes together, and then throw an unwrap on all of them at the same time. And you can do that, so most modifiers you can do on multiple objects at once. It does a weird thing, so if I get out of here and I click one, I'll have the unwrap modifier there, but you'll see it's kind of like italic and a little like inset. That means it's shared amongst other things, so if I adjust it here, we'll adjust for the other objects too, so you can't have that, and if you reselect it, then it'll, if you reselect all your objects, then you'll have this modifier back on here. But anyways, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to throw one UV unwrap on all of my objects. And with that selected, it's going to look like fucking mayhem. Because I've just unwrapped all my shit willy-nilly, right? I didn't give a crap what they looked like. Together, I didn't care about their scale. So if we look at their scale here, some stuff's really, tightly unwrapped. Some stuff's really loose, right? It's all over the fucking place. It's all out of the squares. Doesn't matter, right? I think these guys are garbage. I'm supposed to delete those, so give me a second because I don't want to lose them. Damn, it did not keep that selected. Okay, I guess that doesn't work if you have multiple objects selected, but give me a second here. I just want to, we're going to be packing shit. So sometimes when I'm unwrapping and I find stuff that needs deleting, that's like underneath stuff. Oh, I guess this guy's not really. Oh, yeah, no. So, right? So if I find stuff, I just kind of put it out to a corner, and then when I have it selected, convert back to an editable poly, I'll have it all selected, and I can just delete it. Okay, back to adventure. So select all your shit, throw an unwrap modifier on there, open in your UV editor. Again, looks like fucking mayhem. Totally okay. First thing you're going to do, which is a little intensive if you have a lot of objects, but it should be okay. We're going to scroll down here, and we're going to go under Arrange Elements. You can click one of these guys. It doesn't really matter which one. There's Pack Custom, Rescale Elements, Pack Normalize, Pack Together. If you rescale, I don't think it actually packs them for you. It just scales them all there. But let's take a look at what this is going to do. So again, everything's all crazy fucking scale and shit. I'm going to hit Rescale Elements or Pack Elements. And it's going to pack them all into this one square. All right, it's going to do an okay job trying to mush them all in there. I'm going to scale these up just for a second here, just to kind of show a point. Now when I scale them up, all of these squares across my entire mesh are the same scale. So what it's taken is it's taken these meshes, found out their real world scales, and then try to rescale them all, rescale their UVs to match that. And this is what you want. You want everything to be nice and even. The last thing you want is different resolutions everywhere, because that's how your texture is going to bake out. If something's really big, it's going to have a lot less pixels, it's going to be blurry, and then beside something that's really crispy, and that's when stuff looks really amateur, and you have different resolutions everywhere. Anyways, so yeah, we're just going to pack some stuff. And if you have a lot of objects like this, if your shit's like really bananas, has a lot of small things, Max's packing does a pretty good job for the most part. You can take down the padding. So right now my padding's at 0.02, which means it's going to leave a fairly sizable amount of room in between each things. I can lower this to like 0.01 and try it again, and it'll pack it a little bit tighter. You can also put in rotate. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes you don't want it to rotate your objects, so you can hit rotate and then pack it, and sometimes it'll do a better job. Yeah, see, it started doing these guys on an angle. Sometimes you don't want that. If you have things like this, I don't really want this on an angle because it's not going to render as nicely as when it's 90 degrees. So I'm going to turn that rotate off and not have it repack my shit better. So with rotate on, it may give you a little bit more scale, but like a little bit. Hey, oh, because it already rotated, so it won't rotate it again, you son of a bitch. All right, that's better. So the scale's not as tight as it was before, but it's still packed pretty nicely. And you notice my resolution's a lot worse here. That being said, there's still things you may want to do in here. Sometimes I don't let Max do my packing in there for me for a few reasons. Let's take a look. So Number one, if I go in here and I select this monitor, let's go faces. It's all over the place, right? It is just, you know, it's all over the place. When I go into Photoshop and I gotta paint this thing up, it's going to be like, okay, well, the front of it's here, so I'm going to paint some of this, you know, whatever, silver, and then I got to paint this thing, and I got to find over here. It's really messy, right? It's going to give you a lot of problems. So a lot of times what I do is I let it pack its stuff, and or what I'll do is like pack each of these things individually, right, by element. Hey, cool, kind of like fit it in where it was. Neat. I didn't know it did that. Ah, cut. Sometimes I'll like pack them all separately and then just let it rescale everything just so I have it there, just so all the scales are right, but then kind of move this stuff out of the way again. And I'll manually pack it. And it's a lot more work and it's a pain in the ass, but I'll try and kind of keep all my stuff. I don't need that whole thing, but I'll try and keep my stuff together. So your job, once you're done all your actual unwrapping, is now to pack it all in this box, use as much space as you can, but also try and keep your elements together as best as you can. Obviously, sometimes you can't, but as best as you can. Now, with this padding that it does by default, you have to do that too manually. You can't have elements right beside each other or even really close. You want to give it a bit of a buffer space, at least like a pixel or two of whatever you think your texture is going to be. The reason being, I don't know if I explained it last class, if this is my texture and my pixel is this big, it can't draw black and white on one pixel. So you want to give it enough space so there's no bleeding in between the two different types of colors or tones that you want. So when you pack your stuff together, make sure there's a bit of room in between each object and make sure there's room beside the end of the edge of it as well. You don't want to have this like right up to it because it might bleed over from the tileable side of it as well. So do that, pack it all in there. Try and keep things as straight as you can. Like these arms here, I would actually probably keep them 45 degrees. When you rotate in Max, remember if you hold control, there's a snap. So I would try and keep these guys as straight as I can. I think I explained that last class a little bit, but your pixels will, your pixels are straight, they go up and down. So the more straight lines you can have, the crisper those lines you'll get when they actually bake out. So yeah, pack all your stuff together. I guess we won't really have time probably to bake in this class if you guys are still packing and unwrapping, which is fine. But for next class, have your stuff all packed up. I'll just keep packing this thing up this class if you guys have any questions for me. And next class, we'll finish this off if you guys have any questions after you're doing it yourself. And we'll go from there. Then we'll finally bake, hopefully, and get to some painting. So baking will be baking. It won't be great, but hopefully it'll happen. It's a pain in the butt. My computer sucks at baking because it's old, so hopefully yours is a little better. All right, so let's go here. This is there's no good way of packing stuff. I usually just again separate things out. Monitor, top thing. I like this checker better. All right, and sometimes I'll just start with like the biggest thing, right? So what's the biggest thing on this guy? There's this bottom thing. He's nice and square, so I'm just going to start. I typically start in a corner and then work my way out from that. The reason is if I need to scale all my stuff together uniformly, I can scale from a corner that I've already kind of packed to. So we'll talk about that a little bit too as we get there. But so let's start putting that in, and then next thing I'll do. So again, I start with the biggest things that need to be together. So I got this monitor. So let's put him together. All the shenanigans here. This crazy straight line. In the unwrap modifier, you also have these arrows here, which are rotations by 90 degrees. So if you need to rotate something really quickly, you can do that. It's much more pain in the butt actually using the rotate tool. So I'll start packing this guy in here. And sometimes, if I can, again, I will try and keep this rotated facing kind of up and down as it is in the world. So this dip down is on the top here, so instead of packing it this way, upside down, I'm going to pack it right way up. Just so when I start painting, my monitor is facing the proper way. I don't have to keep rotating my canvas to try and write text or letters or whatever it is on there. It helps. All right, and then this is the back. The back I don't really give a crap about. If you ever are gonna try and move things around and whatever, anything that's like this, that's like kind of hidden, like I'm kind of wasting a lot of texture space in here. I should probably cut this out. But this part's not really a big deal. You can always kind of hide that a little bit. Now, I said everything should stay uniform scale, and that is mainly true. If there's something, so if we go back to our checker view, because this thing is barely ever going to be seen, if I want to scale this down by 10, 15%, that's okay, right? If I feel like it's not that important of a part and I want to get some more resolution for something else, you can do that. Or if I want to, like if I'm putting in other meshes and I need to just non-uniformly scale this thing, like just smush it a little bit, again, up to like 10% on a non-important object is fine. I wouldn't do that to anything that's going to have text on it or icons or the player's going to like directly interact with. But any kind of side things, you could do a little bit of smushing, especially really long things like a pipe. If you smush a pipe 10% on its length, you're probably not going to notice. You'll lose like 5, 10 pixels, 20 pixels, whatever. Not a giant deal. But that's kind of up to you guys. Once you start getting to know your meshes really well, you'll kind of know what to do. All right, so then I'll take my next part here because it's closest to that. And put that right there. So now I have, might actually move this thing out of the way a little. And I'll put my two screens together so they're both kind of here. Just keep on packing, and then I will probably take my next monitor. I like to do my monitors together just so I know all my screens are more or less in the same place. There we go. And I'll do my big monitor here. This guy's kind of a stupid shape. I wonder if I can stitch this to here, if it'll look okay. And sometimes, as you're working, you might discover new things you can stitch together or bring in together. The nice thing about stitching things, even if it's just like a little bit, you don't have to leave any padding in between them. So the less actual objects you have, the less space you got to leave, and that means less space to waste, which is always good with textures because every few pixels you can save and increase your resolution, your shit will look that much better. So, all right, let me get the back of this thing. Some things I don't care about being 90 degrees because they're just kind of whatever pieces. Okay, so what we got? Oh, we got this thing, we got this thing. Fitting things together. This is actually part of the unwrapping that I actually enjoy because it's kind of like a weird ass puzzle. This is definitely something you can make an app into. Here's a bunch of shapes. Try and waste as little space as you can. Go. Oh shit, this thing's huge. Okay.
Outsource the work to the users.
You know it. Take it. If you unwrap 1,000 of my meshes, you'll get $1 off the game.
I'll personally send you an email thanking you.
Yeah, maybe.
You can keep one mesh.
Yeah.
There was a thing you showed a while ago where like you straightened
Like a bunch of like squares or
or a plane or a face you had where it was kind of off, but then you
Oh, okay. So there's a couple ways you could do that. So if you have a whole element that's slightly off, you can select an edge and use this guy here, which is align to edge, and it'll straighten out the whole element for you. There's also, if you just have like one that's kind of off, you can select this whole edge here and use these two, the aligns, and that'll like just scale it completely. And then there's also this guy, which is if you have a bunch of objects like boxes and quads mainly, and they're all cool. I don't know how I did that. Unwrapped, like all broken and shit for some reason, but they're all attached together. You can use this straighten selection and it'll straighten it for you. It does a poor job of doing the scaling face to face, but at least it'll straighten all those edges. Was it one of those guys you were looking at?
Yeah, it was the align to edge.
That thing? Okay, cool.
It doesn't really do anything.
So sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it just has an edge and it's just like, dude, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but sometimes it just has no friggin' idea what. Yeah. And then at that point, so what you can do is you can rotate it yourself, right? If you use the freeform tool, it's a lot, for me anyways, it's a lot easier to rotate with that. You can go in like a corner or a top or bottom or left and right so you get the little rotation icon, and then just kind of rotate that slowly. Make sure you don't have your snaps on too. And then you kind of just eyeball it, but that's kind of your best bet for now. Yeah, I don't know why that tool doesn't work sometimes. I mean, it's nothing overly complicated. Just select that edge, flatten it out, and take everything else with you for the ride. But sometimes it's just like, nope, I shall not, sir. Can't tell me what to do. And we're packing. By the way, after doing this for like 10 years of your life, when your friend asks you to move, you're going to be the best at it. Be like, guys, I got the truck. It's going to be awesome.
Playing Tetris.
You know it. Somebody has to. They beat the Russians.
New Tetris.
Yeah.
It's 5 more shapes.
Yes. It's all the shapes ever. Polygons. Did you guys ever, there's an online Tetris you can play. That's Tetris, but with physics. So the shapes just drop, and they just, like, settle as however their shape would, and it's just unplayable. It's hilarious. You, like, have a line, and you, like, align it where you want it to go, and it just goes.
I think I've heard that one, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Alright, and sometimes you just gotta find good places to wedge stuff. Sometimes it's okay if things aren't like directly beside each other, especially if you know it's not overly important, but guys there. So the nice thing is with like modern day stuff with like substance and all that, putting your elements like super close together isn't as important, because when you look at substance, it just kind of like you just kind of tell it what parts are what texture, and it kind of just does it for you. So you never really have to look at your unwrap again, which is kind of nice. So it's not as problematic in like today's industry. But since we're going to be using Photoshop to do our texturing, just so you guys kind of get the understanding of what substance does in the background, you're going to want to kind of align your stuff a little bit better, because it'll just save you a bit of a headache. And with the padding, like you want to leave like a nice amount of space, but it doesn't have to be like too big, especially when you're doing portfolio stuff and your props are going to be like, I mean, we're going to be baking out like 2048s or something, or this is probably like a 4096 for these monitors because they're fucking bananas. Then it doesn't, you know, you could leave a bit of a tighter space like this. The problem you can get too when you're packing is if you zoom in close enough, the spaces will always seem huge. So make sure you kind of always zoom out a little bit and understand that, you know, because I could take this and I could put them like right up against here. If I zoom in long enough, I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of space, right? And then you zoom out and you're like, oh, it's like they're like right on top of each other. So it's stupid, but it's a good thing to kind of remember sometimes. Okay, so we got a lot of things still. And then we have this guy. This guy could just go wherever. Look at that. And then what I got this. Alright, and what the hell is this? Oh, what's this thing? Oh, that's a stupid shape. I'm going to decide to break these. It's not an overly important thing. I can just kind of put it off to the side here. Alright, it's the monitor. Monitor. Alright, what else do we have? We got this big boy. Okay. Things mainly buried in there. Barely even need that. Whoa, what's happening with this thing? That doesn't seem right. Did I not unwrap this thing? Oops. I must have unwrapped it and maybe Max crashed. Yeah, that's not a good unwrap. Damn, I thought I was done. Yeah, I thought I unwrapped this thing. I think Max crashed. I remember unwrapping these stupid little horn things. Max did crash in last class, I think. Dang. All right, well, I'm gonna unwrap this thing, and I'm gonna continue packing this stuff, and